Hey, welcome to Hear Us Out. I'm Paul,
And I'm Patrick.
and today we're going to be talking about Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars, and essentially just how creatively in like directionless they seem to be with essentially their live action movies and themes and stuff like that. So yeah, let's
Yeah.
roll right into it. Patrick,
Star Wars,
y-
Marvel, live action reboots. I'm fine with it all, but they're creatively bankrupt, Paul. That's why we're talking about this. I'm annoyed. Disney has so much going for it, but it seems to have lost its soul.
yeah, that's the biggest thing. So what we're talking about essentially is that recently enough, Disney has been coming out with just a string of essentially live action remakes of old properties. The most recent one being Snow White. We won't get into any of the problems that that particular production has had, but itself is essentially a remake of the original Snow White show or movie with some alterations. But this isn't the first. We've had Lion King, Mufasa. There's been tons of essentially going back to originally animated movies and creating
Yeah.
them live action. We've got Lilo and Stitch coming out. Like, it's just a
Yeah.
weird kind of going back to a well.
It's easier to mention the ones they haven't because they've done Jungle Book, Beauty and the Beast. We can keep naming, but then you just mentioned one that I wanted to call out, Paul. Once they do it, like they did Jungle Book, then they started doing Mowgli ones. They started doing Jungle Book twos. Mufasa is the prequel of Lion King.
Yeah.
So they're not just going back to the well and remaking their animated classics in live action, which, Paul, you can go into the reasons why they might have wanted to do that or been forced to do that in some cases, but in some cases, it's clear that they're doing it also with an eye on, and now we can make newer sequels and we can get basically it's business driving art. And I think the product is really starting to show that.
Yeah, this is the thing. So we've had a couple of live action. So the idea essentially with the live action kind of remakes of some of these properties has been specifically kind of copyright or revamping kind of distribution rights and stuff like that. As in make
Yeah.
a live action version of a already told story in animation. We'll get to be able to do some hype. There's a nostalgia element. Essentially, all of the things that we've talked about on this show that have been bad
Yeah.
for creativity, nostalgia mining, stuff like
Yeah.
this. Now, this is the interesting thing. This wasn't always the case with Disney,
No.
specifically on their live action things. We've had some interesting experiments with properties that they're trying to retell. Um, Maleficent is one. It's essentially about Sleeping Beauty and that kind of like story. But they've taken the character Maleficent, the bad guy, and turned it on its head and give us just a little bit more backstory and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
they've been able to retell a story in an interesting way.
So they've been creative
Yeah,
with their property. Is that what you mean, Paul?
yeah. This is the thing. But then we got this whole movie by numbers that's completely do the exact same thing. It feels like the risk that they were taking with the live action things have now completely disappeared. Like
Yeah.
and Lion King, Aladdin, which is Snow White. Like all of these movies are essentially Lilo and Stitch. All of these movies are essentially being boilerplate remade just with live action.
Yeah, and can I butt in for one thing very quickly? Do you remember they did Dumbo as one of their first way back?
Yeah,
Like, and it was like, oh, how's this going to work? It didn't really work out for them financially. And I think that was a time when they were almost still doing it from a creative point of view. And then somebody worked out the formula. And I think it might have been around the Jungle Book time. I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. But you're right. They've now got the press machine. They've got the feed it the original. Just remake it. Here's your digital artistry. There's a lot of talent that goes into making these movies. But creatively, from a storytelling point of view, because yes, there are creative skills in making them, but creatively from a storytelling or writing creativity point of view, is not there. It's far from there, and it's not risky. And I'm so glad you brought that up. It's not risky anymore. They know that they know the percentage they're going to get back at their worst, and they know the percentage they're going to get back at their best, and they know the third. It's like, oh, we don't sell DVDs anymore, but this gives us a property we can make a sequel to, and we can have a huge. Apparently, people didn't even like Mufasa, and it made money, so they can have a huge return on mediocre movies.
Yeah, and this is like because they're very much also plowing the specific audience of essentially children, so
Yeah,
families and children and stuff like that, where it's something to bring your child to. But like, gone are the days that they decided that, like, they've tried to kind of like entertain children and maybe teach them some stuff. Like, that's the thing. That's
yeah,
where they've just revamped stories and just like not even revamped. I'm like, it's so awkward to just be
shot for
like,
shot.
yeah, like the Lion King and Aladdin like are just so bad at essentially boilerplating it, and then essentially they're trying like it's not even just towards the Disney properties kind of thing. It's the fact is that like Disney properties are essentially just being kind of like, yeah, they're just being photocopied, like
Yeah,
essentially scanned in and photocopied and then made live action. Star Wars has also had this problem where they haven't tried to kind of immerse us in a kind of a bigger story, not even related to the things that they've already done. We are familiar and
yeah,
nostalgia driven with Star Wars. You don't need to continue specifically showing us similar things. We get the new
sure.
Republic is there. Fantastic. Why don't you
Yeah.
go 200, 300 years into the past or 1,000 years into the past and tell us a story about like someone else, and don't make it government.
And I'm going to devil's advocate for the channel here, Paul. I'll play the other side of that, even though I agree with you. And everybody knows by the time I finish speaking, I'm going to be back on his side anyway. Um, People will say, "Oh, but look what they tried to do. They tried the Skeleton Crew. That's a departure. That's a different type of thing. Oh, what about Andor or the disaster was the Acolyte, or you loved Mandalorian, didn't you?" And to that I say, okay. Look at the last three movies. Look at everything Disney live action TV wise from Mandalorian on. Now, you tell me, as a viewer out there, that you can actually disagree with the spirit of what Paul's saying. Yes, you'll be able to technically point to creative chances or creative ideas, but not in the way that Paul's talking about. And that's where it's that heart and soul of what made and for people who weren't there, because I know I am that bit older, but for people who weren't there for what Star Wars meant to the change in how people viewed not just sci-fi but movies in general, we've moved further away from that than the prequels, which everybody hated and maligned, pod racing BS for, quite rightly. But we're further and further away from the Star Wars magic than we ever have been before. And it's exactly for your point, Paul. So anybody out there that's going to jump in and start defending, I'm cutting you off ever so slightly, going, yeah, you may have us on a technicality,
Yeah.
but do you really feel it? Do you have it in a real creative, genuine answer kind of way? I don't think so.
Yeah, like I do because we enjoyed Mandalorian quite a bit and stuff like that. The
Very
book of
much so.
Boba Fett was very mixed and
Mm.
stuff like that. The
And
Acolyte, like, yeah, there's plenty of examples of, as you say, technically new stories and stuff like that. But yeah, none of them have the heart and soul that we have come to enjoy from a Star Wars tale.
yeah,
And the issue with it to me is that we specifically have other examples of really really good writing. The Clone Wars animated show, both the 2D and also the 3D, amazing tales in there, fantastic. I know that people are going to say like, or there's some people who are going to be like, well, they're for kids. They're not. Watch them, you'll enjoy them, kind of thing. It's just that there's some kind of like it's like they go, let's take a risk here, and it's just like, okay, but that's such a small part of the greater story that it's like you're saying, let's leave the door open instead of the window so that we can get
yeah.
air in. you
That's it.
know?
They're taking risks in the same way that taking your seatbelt off in a parked car
Yeah,
is taking a risk.
yeah.
You know, when the car is moving, the seatbelt is always on, which is good, by the way. Just I don't want this analogy to kick me in the ass. But the risks they're taking are risks. They're not risks.
Yeah.
It's not, hey, by the way, like you called out in a previous video, which everybody should watch. Paul did that thing where I had the big smile on my face. This is why I do it with him. He goes, you know what? They could make a whole movie, say it's nothing to do with Star Wars, and you find out at the very end, just by the fact of something happening, that you're in the Star Wars universe. And I'm like, dude, I love you. I was about to curse. I'm going to not curse in this episode. I love you because that's it. That's a risk. That's using your property. That's using the legacy and the power creatively with balls. Is that, I don't know, that's not
Well,
cursing, but
like,
with guts.
but the thing is, yeah, like that's the thing. They could literally do. They could do like, oh my god, they could do a fantasy film, and later on you find out that the night monks that we've been following like are Jedi.
There you
Like
go.
you could literally just be like, oh, these are wizards with swords. This is kind of interesting, and I mean swords, like metal kind of thing. And then it's like, oh yeah, oh my god, like they go into a town, and a town's just like, these are the Jedi. You know,
Yeah.
the like they're the Night Order that are like famously good people and stuff like that. And you're just like, oh, okay, are we in a Star Wars movie in
The,
fantasy? All right,
they're the
okay,
only franchise that doesn't need a multiverse because their first words were in a galaxy far, far away.
that's
And we have evidence, Paul, that multiverses are difficult and tricky for public in film.
mhm.
How can you be this big and have given yourself such a head start with those simple words and not be willing to go, okay, let's use our singular advantage that only we have? I don't know.
It's
I'm
just
with you. I'm with you.
it's just interesting that they've given like so yeah, to go further into it. It's interesting that Disney and Star Wars, like Disney and Lucas Arts and stuff like that, have given them such a great playground to play in. Disney is famous for folktale. It's fairy tales,
Mhm.
folktale. They have a plethora of stories out there that they can pull from and stuff like that,
Yeah.
of genuine folk tales and stuff like that. We've seen it examples of like of plenty of stories that have taken from specifically like Lord of the Rings is Norse mythology, like mixed in with European Germanic kind of like stuff. So you have plenty. You've no excuse to be able to pull from a plethora of folklore that maybe we even haven't like properly taken a look into.
It's true.
But they've taken such a playground that they could definitely go into. Star Wars is such a vast universe that they could take in. It's such big playgrounds that they decided to go. Yeah, but the rules are we can only be around Coruscant, and
Yeah.
or we can only remake the known stories that have already been told. It's just like, but
Um, we're Easter egg driven and reference driven to the point of strangling our stories.
mm, and it's just
Uh, yeah.
it's right now it feels like, as you say, the business is essentially choking everything that could possibly be seen as dangerous or risky in the current social kind of like um environment, and driving it to the middle. It's like anyone gets an inkling of any kind of like, any kind of challenging story device, and they complain about it on social media, and then the business see it and they drive it into the middle. Like that's the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is that we're getting such creative midway stuff that
Mm,
like it's in no way, and like I know people are going to be like, art is challenging, it needs to challenge our views and everything like that. It also is meant to be like, movies and TV shows are also meant to be entertaining. Like
yeah.
you don't need to challenge my worldviews at every corner. Just you could also just be entertaining story, you know. And by the only way to do that is essentially taking a little bit of a risk on a story
That's
that
it.
you may not have told before. And what I the
Yeah.
biggest one here is Marvel. Marvel is
Ah,
such a like up and down kind of thing, because they are taking risks. They are returning to old stuff. But the biggest example of essentially Disney forcing Marvel to go back is Daredevil. Daredevil
mm,
may be a great show, which is not a problem. The fact is that we had a Netflix show like a while back that was also great, and they've gone, well, we really want, this is a really this is a fan favorite character, and we really want to bring them back into the kind of greater world of Marvel that we decided to do, so we want to go back to that well. And it's like, okay, cool, we're all there for it, but you're going
Yeah.
back to a well.
Yeah, and this is where I have sympathy for them in one way. That is business driven, but also, and how should I put this? I count myself among the fans that say, if you have a chance to continue something that shouldn't have ended, that's pretty spectacular. But because, and this is literally because of the length of time and the amount of other things that kind of got in the way, let's say, I'm with you. I think your point stands. It stands. My inner child is going, don't agree with Paul right now because you really want, you want your John Bernthal Punisher back.
Well,
But my brain goes, I could have had it without them doing it this way.
this is my
Uh,
problem.
and that is your point,
Yeah,
and that is a point well made.
my problem is that the risk that they took in the past shouldn't have
Mm.
ended. They should have continued the story and stuff like that and slowly interweaved it. It's now that the problem now that I have with it is the fact is that they've gone, well, we're out of ideas, so what do we do? It's like, well, John was really good at the Punisher. Why don't we bring him back? And
Yeah.
you're just like, someone in the room should be like, that idea is like 5 years too late, and we really need to, like, if we want to do this, and I know a lot of fans really want us to do it, we really need to put up our hands and be just like, yeah, we screwed up in the past and we're bringing it back now, but
Yeah.
understand that the reason we're bringing it back now is two reasons: we're out of ideas, and two, we're really sorry that we screwed up in the past.
Yeah, we've been casual and careless with our properties. And I think that's the thing for me, Paul. The business pushing creativity and vice versa again can all be drawn back to HearUsOut pointing something out a few years ago. Marvel did the impossible. Like they pulled off a magic trick, the likes of which I couldn't have conceived of. When Endgame, final frame, and we all got up and walked out. You and I ended up doing a video going, Marvel need to slow down and take a break right now. They didn't. And they didn't not for creative reasons. They didn't for business reasons of greed at the time. Creatively, business wise, they've made money and they've suffered because they're not making as much as they wanted. But make no mistake, they've still made money
Yeah.
on good films, bad films, mediocre shows. Echo was watched by people. Secret Invasion was watched by people. They may have been hammered into the ground. They may not have been watched by enough people by the metric they were expecting. But what they did was they corroded a brand that had done the impossible and then flooded the zone with, we can now print even more money. No, a lot of creative people behind the scenes, I'm fairly sure, were agreeing with us, Paul, and saying, hey, 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 we got here through thought and love and creativity and joy and genuine attention to what we were doing. That's why we had so few missteps. And someone said, yeah, creative people, just do more of it and do it now. We've got a Disney Plus to feed. Let's just print more of that lovely money that gets me extra houses on new continents. And I nearly cursed, and they threw the golden goose right out the window after I've people saying to me now, I'm not watching any more Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
Literally saying that as a phrase. Thunderbolts is coming out. It's going to be good. I really, really hope. Fantastic Four is interesting and exciting. Like there's good things coming, but the damage they've done by being greedy is off the charts.
Yeah, that's like the creative kind of direction that they've currently gone in has been weirdly like epically driven by business. And
Yes.
like it's such a problem when they step in to fill a void, because like you would have essentially creative burnout from the end of
Mm.
Endgame. You would have had creative burnout. Now we got some interesting stuff after Endgame and stuff like that that I am not sorry for. The Doctor Strange Multitude of Madness, I'm not sorry for it. I'm not going to apologize. I know
Mm.
people want it to be apologized for. We got a Spider-Man as well, which
Mm.
was also really
Guardians
good.
of the Galaxy 3, I
Yeah, like
think.
we had properties, but it feels like those were kind of like, okay, we've rested up. I can get my writing hand all ready and stuff like that. I'm ready to write. I'm ready to do. I'm ready to be creative and stuff like that. Like if we got, and I know you'll disagree with me, if we got Doctor Strange, Multitude of Madness, Spider Man, and Endgame, or sorry,
Guardians 3.
and that was it. If we had just
Oh
got
yeah,
those since the end of Endgame to now, the hype that we would have for Infinity War and also for Fantastic Four,
Doomsday and Secret Wars.
yeah,
Oh
like well,
yeah,
no, just Fantastic Four and Thunderbolts. If we
yeah,
just like the hype that we would have for just those two movies would be amazing. It would be back to the essentially to what we
yeah.
originally had, and it's because that we had, like as you said, they hadn't corrupted, they hadn't poisoned the well of Marvel by essentially just absolutely churning out stuff. It is very much that they have three golden gooses. I like sorry,
Yeah, yeah. No, no,
they have
please
three
go.
golden gooses, and essentially they've now forced them. They've now factory farmed them. So the
Yeah,
quality of the gold is now so terrible that what's the point in even doing it?
3.5, Paul. 3.5, because the half is what they did manage to pull off on Disney Plus with Mandalorian and WandaVision.
Mm,
And
that's true.
Mandalorian and WandaVision spawned some really brilliant stuff,
Mm,
but percentage-wise, more really terrible stuff. Because for every WandaVision and Loki, there was a secret invasion, and Moon Knight was such a mixed bag. Like I'm going to
yeah.
throw it in there, even let's say. And for every Mandalorian, there was Ewan McGregor coming back and do whatever that thing was for Kenobi. So you could see once they even had a new success, they lost the run themselves. Miss Marvel, brilliant.
Mm,
Couldn't manage to carry that over to saying, let's be careful and do a good job with the Marvels. Because they're like, no, we're just going to plow on ahead. Good after bad here. We're just munching through stuff.
it
Because stuff is our product. That's what we sell. We sell you stuff.
yeah.
We don't need any more stuff, Paul.
It
And
it
yeah, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say you are right. It just feels like they're trying to feed the engine that is Disney Plus, and my biggest worry about that is the fact is that you've got a franchise which a streaming service that we made fun of so
Mm.
badly, which has now come out of the gates and gone, well, we're gonna make the interesting stuff, and that's Apple.
That, that would be Apple TV,
Yep,
everybody.
Apple TV. We
Lots of
slagged.
making fun of it in the past.
Oh,
Lots of making fun of it. And now I feel like we picked on the kid that went to the gym just to get us back. And they're now towering over us going, you were saying?
but do you think that that may have freed them? The fact is that no one thought that they were coming out of the gates in any kind of capacity, and they just went, "Well, if no one is going to care, why don't we
Yeah.
just build everything that we think is weird and wonderful? Let's A20 for this, and just be
Yes,
like,
A24 this.
we're
I
going to be
like
the
that.
weird ones." And it's just like, well, the
Yeah.
weird ones seem to be winning, and on the verge of essentially a new
Through
DCU.
creativity.
Yeah, like that's the thing is Severance like is amazing. The studio, my God, I've
Looking forward to it.
enjoyed that already. Yeah, but that's the thing is they've already brought out which is the Foundation. Beautiful, beautiful story. Um, they've come out with the weird and interesting things, and we're on the verge of a new DCU that
Mm.
could be like fully like full of creativity and directioned creativity better than the DCEU. Um, and that's a
Let's hope
real
so.
danger for Disney. The fact is that you've got Apple TV going, well, we'll just be as creative as we want. Everybody gets a free reign. Let's see what we can do. And
Great
we've
point.
and James Gunn is now going, well, I'm remaking the DCU, and this could be really challenging for Disney. You know, with
Yeah, they've got way more competition than before. But bringing it back around to Disney, Paul, Disney still has, you know how many billion-dollar movies there were last year? Three.
Hmm,
There were only three. Do you know who made all three of them? Disney. It's Inside Out 2, um, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Wicked.
hmm,
Now, what do all three of those have in common?
but
When you
enough.
think about everything we've just said about Disney, Inside Out 2 was a creative tour de force. People say, oh, it's a sequel. Yeah, you sit down and consider what doing a sequel to Inside Out means.
Yeah.
And I mean literally means as to what you're about to try and create. Then you take, oh, we're maligning Marvel here, but you give people like James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy 3. He, that's exempt from the bereft of creativity that they had because they had to let him finish that. It's same thing when it comes to, Reynolds and all the people involved in Deadpool and Wolverine. When people were allowed to do their job, and Wicked, another great example. That's Maleficent in a different form that you brought up earlier on. And these are the things they're having the successes with.
Mm.
And I mean the big successes with. So how come they can't see it if they are so business driven? The spreadsheet is showing them what you're articulating beautifully and what I'm gesticulating about quite angrily. So all three angles, the emotion, the sense, wherever you are over there, and the numbers, and yet they seem to have the blindfold on, like hitting the big feeder button going, can we just keep mashing this and get stuff?
It's the problem. I'm hoping that,
It is the
and I'm
problem.
hoping that once again that someone from Disney executive branch is going to watch Heroes Out and be just like, right, we should probably listen to them because they
Yeah.
have been right, and you should call us, because although we do want you to start making creative stuff and start listening to us more and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and you are a big corporation, we're perfectly happy with taking some of your money.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
A
but yeah,
lot
no,
of your
it's
money.
the creative. Yeah, it's just a sad thing because I like closing up on some of the stuff. It's just a sad thing because yeah, it's a big field that they play on within the movie kind of verse, and we're getting just not as creative, lovely stuff as we should. It's
I
so this is coming
I
from
like Disney. I
yeah,
want them to go back to doing well,
yeah,
as in outputting good stuff. Because I don't care who you are. If you're making good stuff, that's good. Don't just make stuff and hope that it's good.
yeah.
There's a big difference in that word order.
It's the gray gruel kind of issue,
So,
that it's
Soylent Green is people, and Disney are producing cack.
like that's the thing. It's
It
just
is
like
gruel.
yeah, it sustains us. It's perfectly fine. It doesn't taste great.
Yeah.
But then you got Apple TV and possibly TCU going to give us like amazing lobster and steak and amazing kind of like
The aforementioned A24.
yeah. So this is my issue just currently with the whole creative direction that Disney seems to be going in.
And I agree with that guy.
But yeah, let us know down in the comments down below if you agree with us. Are we full of grey gruel? Which goes, or are you feeling the same thing? Are you feeling that a lot of studios are driving towards the middle and trying not to hurt or may take any risks? And are you kind of sick of it? Like, let us know in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, ring that notification bell.
And I guess on that note, Paul, I've been Patrick,
And I've been Paul.
and we've been here Out.